Yeah. So what are the challenges in RTDs we have discussed? Like we have started with a very small problem statement, discussing how that can be solved using multiple ways in RTDs, right? You saw like you can create a so the problem statement is basically you have been given two data sets, scholarship uh, recipients data, that is their demographics information, like each student ID, their country and other information. Similarly, the student's finance information, saying the students has debts or financial dependence or education loans and all this. So out of these two data set, we want to basically find out the list of students who are from Switzerland and they're having debts and financial dependence. Right. So for this problem statement, we discussed there are three different ways to solve this. Okay. So the best approach is basically apply filter on both the data set and reduce the data set size. So demographics data is applied with the filter that is country equal to Switzerland. Similarly, finance data is applied with the filter saying has debt equal to true and has financial dependence equal to true. And post that we join both these data sets, right? So that's one of the approach. And the second approach what we discussed, first apply the join and then apply the filter. And the third approach is basically find out the Cartesian product of the same and then apply the filter, okay, which is the least going approach or the bad approach what we have discussed, right? So, but here basically since we are applying the operations as whole bunch of higher order functions on RDDs, so for the single problem we have n number of ways to solve. We discussed just three, there can be many, right? But in data frame, it's pretty much similar to your SQL, where you have very limited options. Like for projection, you have select function. For filter, you have where function, where attribute, sorry, where clause you can say. So you have only a limited number of functions for each and every functionalities. So that's why what we did, we saw like you have very limited number of approaches to solve the same problem. So that's why like we discussed like that's why what we did. We just discussed saying let's use data frame so that we don't have many different ways to solve. Rather, we have very limited number of ways to solve. So the optimization becomes inherent, or it's basically handled by the API itself. We don't have to take a lot of effort for the optimization. Okay, so that is there. So that is one of the thing, and that is another thing. But here, Abhishek, I can see your cluster is running since last 2 days. Why is it like this?
Yeah, it is running.
No, it will just automatically deduct the amount, then you will see like thousands of rupees are there. Okay, so it's a free account. Let's use it as a free. Okay, so even if they are not charging, but all of a sudden if they'll change the policy and they will start charging, so we'll see a huge amount deducted, and you have to again drop a mail to them. You have to talk to them. A lot of processes are there. Anyways, let's start using this. So last session we saw the infrastructure setup part also, like how to set up a cluster and how to basically make all these things ready. So you saw like we have created a EMR cluster. We have created a Lambda script. Lambda is a serverless scripting where you can write the instructions to create a cluster. Okay, so that we have done last time. So
But
this is
here the
the
changes I have not the changes you made in the session. Those
Mhm.
changes you cannot see here. I've just copied and pasted there.
Okay, okay, no worries.
Okay.
Okay, let me quickly make the changes. So you have mostly the subnet ID is this. The background noise.
Oh, this
Uh,
dog is barking.
yeah,
One second,
yeah.
one second. I mute me or
Okay, okay, okay. So what we can do, I just copied the subnet ID.
Siddharth, one question.
Yeah, indeed.
This is not cloud formation script, correct?
This is not CloudFormation script. This is Lambda script. So
Okay.
there are multiple ways to create cluster. So yeah, you're correct. There is one approach is to use CloudFormation script to create cluster. The second one is basically using AWS SDK. Okay, AWS SDK is Boto 3 that also can be used. Okay, there are multiple ways are there. So I follow both the approaches, but this is easy for you to start with. That's why I'm using it.
In real time, which one is preferred, Siddharth?
It's all are used, both are used,
Okay.
scenarios to scenarios. Okay, so but everybody you have to just a request. Everybody have to use it carefully, otherwise unnecessarily you'll be getting a lot of bill and you have to close the account. You have to again create it. It's a lot of effort, unnecessary effort. Okay, let's carefully use this thing because it's for learning purpose. They're providing it for free. So let's try to make proper use of this. Okay, so that is there. Hmm. So, and don't keep any backlogs. These are all important. Every session is completely dependent upon the previous session. So we have to finish everything on the same day itself. Okay, here the bucket name is basically this one. Is internet is a little slow for you, Abhishek? I can see it's a little slow. Okay.
No, it's perfectly all right, Siddharth. And one more thing, just three particular thing what I asked you in WhatsApp, I message you.
Mm-hmm.
Just you asked you to mug up those things whenever we are loading some data. So that particular conceptual area is not clear to me. I've gone through the video.
Loading data where?
The three commands, once again. Yeah, git add commit and push origin.
Mm-hmm.
So this just if you could brief it.
I don't also know, like this is the standard commands that they follow to make the code available from local to this.
Yeah.
There is no concept behind that. It's just a syntax to use that.
Okay.
So you have
Every
to
time,
follow
like
that.
day
Yeah,
to day,
correct.
we have to use it.
Exactly.
Okay. Just mute me.
So that. Okay, so that is there. So let's. So the cluster creation, all these things we did. So we just set up the Lambda script. Let's quickly create a cluster using this script. Okay, so now what we have done, we can terminate this existing cluster because we are creating a new cluster now. Okay, so it didn't create a cluster. That means our Lambda failed. I think because of that permission issue. Okay, so it created create EMR. We can go there. Oh, what I did. So you have to create an IAM role. It has created an IAM role. You have to just add few policies there. These are redundant things here, like finish it, otherwise we'll be doing the same thing again and again. So roles, we can see roles is basically create EMR. Okay. So attach policies. Elastic MapReduce. Elastic MapReduce full access. Okay. So you can just go there, attach policies. Okay, that's it. So we can now go again and we can try creating cluster again. Yeah, this time it is successful. So if you go to EMR, you should see that new cluster. Okay, so that is there. So we have our cluster ready now, so we can start using it. Okay, so and similarly we can go to the code here, data frame examples. We'll first start with this RDD approach. So what we can do, we can first start with join and filter. Okay, so in this approach, what we did, we first created the Spark session object. You can see we discussed in RDD that every time you use Databricks notebook, you always have Spark context object pre-populated. Similarly, Spark session object also pre-populated. But now we will be using Spark session going forward. Spark session will be used to create data frames, and Spark session object has attribute that is Spark context also. Okay, so we don't have to create Spark context, Spark session separately. So what's the difference between all this? So basically what happens, like in Spark 1, we have 3 different context objects to basically work with different data abstractions. Okay, so different data abstractions. So what happens, like if you want to create a RDD, you have to create a Spark context object. Okay, so Spark context object is used to read data from different sources and create RDDs out of it. Similarly, to create data frame, we have SQL context. You have to create a SQL context object and then read data from different sources and create data frame out of it. Similarly, you have Hive context, that is again another context object to read data from different systems and to read data from Hive tables and create a data frame out of it. Okay, so these are different approaches, but in Spark 1.6 onwards, they just generalized it. Now you have a single Spark session object that can be used to do all these 3 activities. Okay, so here we have just written the main function here in line number 6. Okay, and before that we have used these at the libraries. Okay, one is basically import Spark session object from PySpark.sql package, then os.path, and these are the different libraries we are using. You will see them one by one. Here, basically inside the main function, you are setting up the configuration. Okay, these are the libraries required. Okay, so you want to read data from Amazon S3 bucket. So for that, we have this library. Okay, org Apache Hadoop Hadoop AWS 274. Okay, here you don't have to just buy head this thing. These are all available in the public repository. You can just search it there. Okay, so you can go there and you can search it also. Okay, these are all publicly available and it has been used, it has been taken from this Maven repository. Okay, so what we do generally, so you can see org Apache Hadoop AWS, and 2.4.7. This is Maven. If you're writing a Java code, you have to import this library so that this library will be downloaded from the web and it will be copied from your to your local computer. Similarly, if you're using SBT, if you're creating a Scala application, then this is the syntax to use import this library to your code. Okay, but since we are using we are neither using Java or Scala and all, we are using normal Python. So what you have to do, we have to follow this approach: hyphen packages, all these three parts. Okay, so you can see org Apache Hadoop colon Hadoop AWS colon 274. This is the syntax to use the import libraries in our code. Okay, so OS path. Okay, so the OS is basically inbuilt library here in Python. So os.environ within square bracket. This is the parameter name PySpark submit args. Okay, and there you are adding this. Like when you will be executing Spark submit command, it will add this hyphen packages and this to PySpark shell. Okay, so this is basically when you want to run the code locally. Okay, if you do all these setups, like I have done it in in Mac, so it's working fine. You can right click and execute. Similarly for Ubuntu also, all Unix-based systems, you can right click and execute. So that for that I have added this code. But if you don't want to use this in your local computer, right now we're using EMR clusters to execute the code. So this part is completely optional. Okay, so you can see like in the last I mentioned the Spark submit command. There also have added this part. Okay, this is the library you have used. If you have multiple libraries, you can just put comma separated within double quote. You have mentioned org Apache Hadoop AWS this, so you can keep on adding multiple libraries in this, and this is the file name which you want to execute. We'll see them one by one. So as I mentioned, there are two different parts. You have to mention the library, whether you can directly add it as a OS environment variable, that is PySpark submit args. Here also you can add, so that like if you do all this setup in your local computer, you can right click and run this. So it is a little challenging for different OS. Actually, I'm not spending time because you can see for AWS setup also I have to did it twice. I'm not sure, like maybe I have to do it once again for another person who is facing issue. So we'll be spending a lot of time doing the infrastructure setup. So that's not the whole idea. That's not the right effort utilization. So that's why you can just skip it. But it's there. Like if in future you'll get a chance to do the setup, you can right click and run here itself, just like you execute a Python code. Okay, that is there. And post that. Otherwise, like if you're running it in EMR, you don't have to do any setup. Simply just move the code there, and all these things are executed there itself. All these libraries are pretty much easy to configure there. And now you can see like Spark session object we have created, Spark equal to Spark session dot builder dot app name dot master local star dot getter create. Here you are creating a Spark session object. Okay, this is the Spark session object, which is also available in Databricks notebook. There is a variable called SC, stands for Spark context, and Spark stands for Spark session. Okay, here you have to create it manually. Okay, in real-time projects, you have to create it manually. And then every time you execute the code, it will print a whole bunch of logs. Okay, when a system is starting, Spark session is starting, it will print a lot of log statements. To suppress those logs, we are saying Spark context set log label error. That means if any error logs are appearing, generating, so you are just print them in the console, or else just don't print it at the console. Okay, so you are saying all error logs will be printed in the console when you execute this code. Okay, so that you will see minimum number of logs. Okay, otherwise what will happen? No, every time you execute, you will see 50 lines of log statements. Okay, anyway, you will see some lines of logs. If you don't consider this, if you don't set the log label, more number of logs will be printed. Okay, we will see that shortly. Then what we are saying, we have to create two configuration files. One is called application YML. Okay, so two configuration files we are maintaining. One is application YML and second one is called .secrets. Okay, so why there are two configuration files? The reason is obvious. One is all these what we call system level configurations. For example, all the system level configurations, that is basically say you are reading data from Amazon S3 bucket, you require the access key, secret key, and all these stuff. Similarly, suppose you are using MySQL database connections and all, you have to use the MySQL related credentials like JDBC URL, username, password, and all these things. Similarly, so this kind of information shouldn't be part of your Git repository, isn't it? So that's why I have just segregated the configurations into two configuration files. One is .secrets file. Okay, you can see it's starting with dot. So you will not be able to see. So whenever you open your what do you call this kind of file systems and all, generally dot secret files are dot. Any file which starts with dot will not be appearing because these are considered as system files. Okay, and when we will be publishing the code changes to the Git, we will say if a file names dot secrets, don't put it into your don't put it into a repository. Okay, so don't put it into repository because these are the credentials files. Okay, that's the whole reason we are not that's the whole reason we are not putting those things. You can see dot git ignore. That is also, you can see this file is not appearing like that. So there all these system configurations will be going. I'll send that file when we will be executing this code. And another is application YML. Inside your application also you have a lot of configurations like my Amazon S3 bucket. This is the thing. It's not very confidential. You can put it here and it varies program to program, like or environment to environment. You are doing it in a development environment, you are specifying S3 bucket related to dev. Similarly, S3 SFTP configurations, like this is the SFTP configurations, and MySQL configurations table name. You are not mentioning the JDBC URL, user ID and password and all this. Just 1 second.
Siddharth, quick
Yeah.
question here.
Please.
You created some services in AWS,
Okay.
right? Okay, we have created cluster, we have created services in AWS. Now we are processing whatever the code we have to process here in PyCharm.
No, we are not. No. Who told? No, right? We will be executing on EMR only, right?
We will be executing on EMR. That's why
EMR
the configuration.
cluster. Yeah.
So now what's the relation like here in PyCharm, and what's the relation? How will we create the relation? Just help me at a high level how these two things are integrated.
How we will be developing the code there? See, so when you are creating a clusters and all, these are all Unix-based systems. There is no such UI there. Okay, that's a remote machine, CentOS, that can be accessed through only this black and white command prompt. Okay, you'll be using your terminal or PuTTY console to connect from local to that particular system. So there, how you'll be developing the code. So generally we use VI editor or this kind of Unix based editor to do all these things. But the point there is basically it's very difficult to do the development there. So that's why the programming part we do it locally. We write all this code here in a local computer using any of this ID, and then we execute it there. Getting my point?
Okay.
So you do the development using your local laptop. Maybe you're using any Windows, doesn't matter whichever OS you are familiar, you're comfortable with. You use them and then do the execution there in the cluster, which is a black and white screen. Okay, so EMR cluster is over. Yeah.
Do we promote the object in some sense? Like here we have created, once we compile this program, it will create an object, and then that particular object we have to execute there. Some sort of help me to understand.
So what is object creation? I don't understand. Means you have written the code just like you write your ETL code there in Databricks notebook using the what you call cells. You create a notebook and that notebook provides different cells. You write pieces of code there and execute. Similarly, here you are writing the code using .py file. Okay, you are creating a proper Python file and you are writing the code and you'll be executing there. Just wait, just have patience. We'll see there how to execute, then you'll be able to relate it. Okay, so so what you're asking is really confusing, creating our object locally and all this.
No. What similarly, I'm trying to relate something which I've already worked on. So that's
okay, maybe like a but different programming language for you. Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
So let's see. So what we are doing, so we basically what we did, we just did the development. we created the Spark session object, and post that when you do the development of a real-time project, it has whole bunch of configurations, right? You have whole bunch of configurations. Some are application level configurations, some are system level configurations. So we bifurcate them. We create two different configuration files. In different applications, there are multiple type of configurations. Here we are following two configurations. One is system level configurations. System level configurations means like your S3 credentials, your database credentials from which you are fetching data, your all these different credentials, and all these different credentials. And post that we are saying when you have okay, that is there. And the other thing is basically when you are basically for application level, like suppose you have some table or you have some files, you have certain format, so those level of configuration you can maintain it in a different file called application YAML file. Okay, so dot secret files I will just share with you. So you can see like all application level changes. Here I am executing some SQL queries that I mentioned here. Okay, so like that, I'm reading some files, some columns there, all these things are mentioned here. So just for now, just assume like your application is having some configuration and you have segregated them into two parts. One is application level, another is basically systems level or secrets file. Okay, that's how we just maintain we are maintaining our configurations. Okay, so that is there, and post that. So something you're following, right? What I'm trying to say here.
Yes, Siddharth. Basically, I worked on this Spring application, so I can relate all those things. YAML file.
Yeah. So YAML files we maintain. Some are basically some configuration.
One question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, one question I was asking. What is the build tool we're using here? Do we have a concept of build tool like Gradle, Maven?
Yeah, here so when you are doing Java, Scala and all, there you are using Maven or SVT. But for Python, you can directly use, no build required here.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why we are not using. But Scala application, if I run a Spark with Scala Bash, then I'll be using SVT. But here there is no build tool, we can directly use it. Okay, so then we are basically trying to read those configurations. Then I'm trying to read these configurations. Okay, these configurations, you can see my application conf file is sitting there in the root directory. Data frame examples is the root directory, and in the data frame examples is the root directory. Inside that you have application YAML file, right? But whereas my files, what do you call this? Scholarship recipient filter.py, this file is sitting inside this RDD folder. Okay, data frame examples, inside that RDD, inside that this file is there. So when I want to read application YAML file, so that I'm using this syntax, OS path, absolute path. Inside that I'm passing this URL. Okay, I'm passing this URL saying current directory plus //. Okay, then I'm mentioning application.yml file. Okay, I'm mentioning this so that it's basically pointing to this particular application YAML file. Similarly in the same path, I have to put .secrets file. I'll send it over WhatsApp just in few minutes. So I'm just providing these two paths and I'm reading those configuration file here. Okay, I'm reading this configuration file. I'm saying conf equal to open these two files. I'm opening here. Conf also I'm opening and secrets also I'm opening, and then I'm saying YAML.load. YAML is a library that is used to basically maintain the application configuration file. It gives a JSON kind of structure, key value pairs, key inside that nested key value like that. Okay, YAML yet another something like that, yet another. Anybody remember what's the full form of YAML? Anyway, YAML file is basically if a configuration file is used. Okay, that is to basically mention all your configuration as whole bunch of key value pairs. Okay, for that we have the library called YAML. We have imported here. It's showing red color because we don't need to install it in locally. And post that, what we are doing, we are reading those configurations here. Okay, in line number 25, we just read yml.load this conf object, which is a file object, and then we mention yml.fullloader, it loads the full file. And similarly app config also, this also does the same thing, secrets, and then it mentions full loader. Okay, so it will be reading the entire thing as a dictionary. Okay, so the dictionary having the root element, sorry, this dictionary is having key called s3conf, inside that sub key called s3 bucket, and the value is this, like that. Okay, so now this this app conf and app secret, these are the two dictionaries having whole bunch of key value pairs. And then you are saying Hadoop conf. Okay, Hadoop conf is equal to spark.spark.conf, sorry, spark.spark.context. You can see this is how you can make use of Spark context object. Spark is the object you have created. Inside that there is an attribute called Spark context. Inside that again a further attribute called dot underscore JSC. Okay, dot Hadoop configuration. Okay, this particular object is basically Hadoop configuration object. To that object, you have to set up the access key and secret key. You want to read data from S3, right? So when you want to read data from Amazon S3 bucket, so you have to provide the access key and secret key. That's what you have done here. You are saying Hadoop conf.set access key, secret key. You have mentioned all this. Similarly, you are saying demographics RDD is equal to spark.spark.context.text file. Okay, so how to read the file as a RDD? We simply mentioned their Spark context.text file, right? sc.text file. But here you are using this syntax. You are saying spark.spark.context.text file. Then inside that you are providing this path. Okay, you have to provide this path in this way: s3a : dot appconf. Okay, you can see it's a dictionary. We are mentioning, we are retrieving the key root key, that is s3conf. Okay, s3conf is the root key. Inside that further key is called s3 bucket. Okay, you can relate this one. You said that app config, within square bracket you mention this key, again within square bracket you mention this key to get this particular value. Okay, so whatever your configuration name, you have to read that, and then you have to process that. So that is there, and so that is there. And then similarly we have another data set called finance RDD that also doing the similar thing. Spark context.text file, you are reading this particular path. So you have now created two RDDs out of it. So our first approach is basically join and filter. So you are joining them. You are saying demographics pair RDD. So you have to first convert it to a pair RDD, where you first applied this map transformation, saying lambda line : line dot split comma. Okay, because the file is, we can quickly see that file also. Not sure you have. So did you do the git setup, Abhishek? I think so. But yeah, all these configurations, try to do it, because you saw today also I did it again. So let's not spend a lot of time doing the same thing again and again, because things are getting recorded. So when you follow this recording in future, it will be really boring. Okay, so let's try to do it in one shot. Okay, so you can see the data looks like this. This is student ID, age, coding bootcamp test, then country, gender, couple of other attributes are there. Okay, so what you did, you just read this data and create a RDD out of it. Then you applied a map transformations to split it through comma. Then you again applied a map transformation. You mentioned you created a tuple out of it, right? You created a tuple out of it, saying key is basically list of 1, sorry, list of 0. That means student ID is basically the key, and value is a composite value. You can see, if you remember in the aggregate by key of RDD and all, we have seen this kind of logic multiple times. Here basically you converted that RDD of string to RDD of key value pair, where key is the student ID and value is the tuple of all these rest of the values. Okay, post that what you did, similar thing for finance RDD also you did. So finance RDD is having first attribute as student ID, and the rest of the attributes are all these other information. For example, so we have used the corresponding data types also. If you just See here, while creating a pair RDD, you can see list of 0, I just converted it to integer. Similarly, list of 1, I converted it into integer. List of 2 is converted to Boolean. Like that, we converted each and every attribute to their respective data types. Same thing for finance RDD also. Key is basically student ID, and the value is basically the tuple of rest of the other attributes. Right? We did that, and that's how basically things are done here. That's how basically we created these two RDDs, demographics pair RDD and finances pair RDD. Okay, so basically, because anyway, like you have to, in order to apply joins, you have to convert the RDDs to pair RDDs, and that's what we have done here. Okay, that's there. So finance RDD, demographics RDD and finance RDD we have just created here. And now what we are doing, we are basically saying join these two data sets. Okay, demographics pair RDD dot join finance pair RDD. Okay, again we are applying dot filter. We are saying lambda record colon record of 1, record of 0, record of 2 is equal to Switzerland. So if you remember what we have discussed, like every time you want to apply a filter, so you join. So what will the output? So demographics RDD is a RDD of key value pair. Key is integer, value is a tuple of almost 7 elements. Similarly, finance RDD is a RDD of key value pairs. Key is student ID, which is integer, and value is basically a tuple of whole bunch of 5 to 6 elements. Okay, so when you join them together, you get another pair RDD where key is student ID and value is again tuple inside 2 more tuples. I'm not sure if you remember this or not. So if you remember, if you have one RDD that is, if you have one RDD that is having key value pair where key is integer and value is a string, and you have another RDD that is RDD2 is equal to again a RDD of int comma, say it's a nested tuple, say int comma str. Okay, when you have this, so when you're applying join, no, RDD1 dot join RDD2, what is the output you get? You get an output that is of type in this way. Key type is integer because both are sharing the same key, so key will be the same. Value will be a tuple now. Okay, this tuple contains first element, that is str, which is the data type of the value part of RDD1. So this becomes str, and the second is again a tuple because here the value part is basically int comma string, isn't it? So you mention int comma string here, isn't it? So that's how basically the join functions generates the output. Okay, key and value is wrapped inside a tuple. So if your elements are of type string, it's string. If it is type tuple, if it's type tuple, it's tuple, like that. Exactly same thing happening here. Once you apply this join, so you get a RDD of key value pair. Key is integer and value is a tuple of 2 nested tuples. Okay, tuple of 2 nested tuples. So that's why you can see, like, I want to access the demographics ID. I want to find out the country part. So this record is nothing but this entire value part. Okay, record is nothing but entire value part, where 1 is 0th index is the key, which is student ID integer, and 1 is the value part of the output. Okay, this record is basically, record of 1 is basically the value part of your pair ID. Okay, value part is basically a tuple of 2 nested tuples. This highlighted part is that. Okay, what I just shown you, this value part is basically this. You can relate it, right? So this entire variable of means within square bracket 0 is integer, within square bracket 1 is basically the entire value part. Okay, that's what I just mentioned here, highlighted part. Then I'm saying again dot 0. Okay, means square bracket 0. That means what I'm doing, I'm trying to access the first element. Here it is string, but assume like it's not string. Say it is also a tuple, the string comma integer. So that means, so when I'm saying some variable, say x of 1 means the value part, this entire value part, right? Then I'm saying again dot 0, sorry, square bracket 0. That means here the value part itself is, a nested tuple, str comma int, again a tuple of int comma str, right? That's how the value is. I'm saying x of 1. X of 1 is basically this entire part. This is a bigger tuple, and the second part is x of 1. The highlighted part is nothing but x of 1. Then of 0. Of 0 means this part. Of 0 means this part. Okay, this highlighted part is basically x of 1 of 0. Exactly same thing I have done here. Record of 1 of 0, that means this is the value part of demographics RDD. Then I'm saying of 2. Okay, because this highlighted part is also a tuple that contains rest of the information of the student data, sorry, demographics data. So this part is the key part. Value part is the entire thing, isn't it? Value part of the entire thing. Once I retrieve the second part, then I am saying again of 2. 0 is 18, 1 is true, or 2 is Switzerland. That's what I'm trying to do here. Getting my point? So I'm saying record of 1 is the value part of the entire nested tuple. Then I'm saying of 0 means the first element, that is demographics. Of 2 means inside demographics tuple, the second index, that is the country, is equal to Switzerland. And similarly, record of 1, that's the entire value part. Then of 1 means the second index of the value tuple, which is finance value part. Of 0 is equal to 1. Okay, so that means if you just again go to the data, so finance, let's open the finance.csv. So 0th part just is a student ID. I'm just tracking these two, has debt equal to true and has financial dependence equal to true. These two index I'm just accessing here. So in our RDD, this entire part is the value part. So from that value part, I'm accessing 0 and 1 index. Okay. So from that part, I'm accessing the 0 and 1 part. So here, like what we are discussing, record is of type key value pair. Key is basically the student ID, which is integer. Value is a tuple of 2 nested tuples. First tuple is the value part of the demographics RDD. Second is a tuple that is the value part of the finance RDD. So from the demographics value part, I'm accessing the second index, that is the country Switzerland. And from the value part of the finance RDD, I'm accessing the 0th index, that is has debt equal to true and has financial dependence equal to true. So wherever these three conditions are satisfied, those records will be only fetched. Rest of the things will be removed out. Got it? Sandeep, Kishore, can you quickly recap what we discussed? Can you just explain me this again so that I'll get to know if you're following or not? It requires concentration. If you just fluctuate 5 minutes, completely you are wasting for 2 hours. Because the RDD syntax is a little tricky. So you have to just follow this. Tricky as in, like, if you just practiced all these Python examples, this is straightforward. Just a whole bunch of nested tuples only. Other than that, it's nothing else. Okay, we have to just keep track every time you apply a join, how the output is getting generated and how you are accessing each and every attribute, isn't it? Kishore, you understood like what we discussed here?
So
Sandeep?
the key value
Yeah,
part I did not get it.
You didn't get. Like, why is it difficult, or you missed? You lost concentration.
I lost concentration for 2-3 minutes. So that's it.
Yeah, that's there. Sandeep, can you quickly recap?
Yes, can you go to the code? Should I go line by line, or it's okay to summarize?
Yeah, line by line, from line number 34 till 44.
Okay, basically, since we will be running all this code in the AWS, right? So we'll be creating the S3 bucket. From S3 bucket, we'll be reading 2 files. One is demographic.csv and another one is finance. And since we are applying join, right? So we are converting the string file into the list. So since .map will go each list by list, so we applied for the demographic pair RDD, right? It will be created new RDD from the demographics RDD, and we are splitting the file into we're reading the line by line and splitting the line into line with a comma separated. And we're loading all the data into demographics pair RDD. And in that, we'll be creating string to Boolean and integer will be casting the fields. And same applies to finance pair RDD, whereas we'll be reading the file and splitting by comma, and same string to Boolean and integer casting will be applied. And the third step is joining both the files. Both the files means paired RDD. We'll be joining it, and matched keys will be in the first record, and both the file content will be in the tuple. Demographics pair RDD will be in the zeroth position index, and finance RDD will be in the first index. Inside will be, if you want to access that content in the first index, again we'll have to index again, since it is a tuple, nested tuple, right? So the filter condition after joining both the files is for the demographics RDD, we are reading the first tuple, I mean, inside which the second index, the third position will be, we are evaluating it to Switzerland. And for the finance pair RDD, we are evaluating for the Boolean characters at location at index 0 and 1. It means position 1 and 2. We'll be printing each value for the paired RDD, for the matched records.
Exactly. That's what we are basically doing it. We just created two RDDs, two pair RDDs, demographics pair RDD and finance pair RDD, which are basically key value pairs. Both are sharing the same key, that is student ID of type integer, and value is a tuple of rest of the fields. Okay, value is the tuple of rest of the fields. So rest of the fields are containing country information and rest of the thing. Similarly, finance data is also, the value part is basically having has debt equal to true, has financial dependence equal to true. So those and couple of other attributes you can clearly see, right? Means here in line number 39. So this part, all these rest of the attributes except the student ID, everything has been mentioned here. Everything has been mentioned here. Okay, that is there. And similarly for this part also you can see, apart from the student ID, rest of the attributes are mentioned here. Okay, that is there. Then what you are doing, you are basically joining both the RDDs, demographics pair RDD dot join finance pair RDD. Okay, so after joining, it always generates the output, that is key value pair. Key is basically student ID because both are sharing the same key, and the value part will be nested. Value part will be wrapped inside a tuple. Okay, that tuple will contain first element as a tuple that contains all these elements here, what you are seeing. Okay, these elements are part of the first element inside the value, and these elements will be, this second tuple will be like this. Second tuple will be this. Okay, so once you create this, then basically you are joining them and you are applying a filter record, pressing record of 1 of 0 of 2 equal to Switzerland, and record of 1 of 0 is 1, and 1 of 1 is 1. When all these three criteria are satisfied, then only those records will be coming. Okay, so let's execute this and we'll see that. So you have Putty and all this thing in your system. Did you install Putty? Let me quickly see. I'm not sure at the system. I'm not able to access it, and I'm clicking something else is happening. So for all Windows user, we don't have any direct way to access remote systems. So that's why you have to install a software called Putty. Okay, I'm not sure if I mentioned this or not, but you can see Putty is there. If you have not installed, just make sure like you install this Putty software for only Windows user. Okay, for Mac and Unix, any Unix like Ubuntu and all, you don't have to install anything. You can directly open your terminal. Here in Windows, it is called command prompt. There it is called terminal. You have to use the terminal to connect to that particular system. Okay, so here what we'll be doing. So before that, I have to first again search PuttyGen. PuttyGen is again another tool. When you install Putty, when you install Putty, by default, these two software get installed on your machine. One is called PuttyGen and another is called Putty. Okay, PuttyGen is basically used to convert the PEM file to PPK file. Okay, if you remember, while creating a private key file, that private key file is basically downloaded as a PEM file. Okay, so PEM file is basically for Unix and Mac. For Windows, we have to convert that PEM file to PPK file. Okay, so you should see, like, if you just select this, if you have just followed these instructions, I can see spark.pem. Okay, so successfully imported. Then what you call save private key again. Click yes, and just give the same name, Spark. Okay, don't mention PEM, simply just mention Spark and then call save. Okay, just save that file. Okay, that's it. We are done with this part. And now we will be coming here. We'll be accessing that. Okay, Hadoop @ Now just go to your cluster part, copy this. Okay, this is the master public DNS, and you can see. Click this box, it will copy this URL and come here and paste it. Okay, Hadoop is the username. Okay, Hadoop is the username @ then the DNS name you specified. Then just come to this SSH section. Okay, and then mention auth. Here just click browse and then save that PPK file. Yeah, I don't know why it's always coming to documents. So now just go to the workspace. Just you can see this spark.ppk file is there. Now just again scroll up, go to session. Okay, type a name. Okay, save. I want to save this session so that every time I don't have to type everything manually. Okay, so before that, I think before opening it, you have to do another activity. So if you see, there is security group has been mentioned here. So you can see there is a Elastic MapReduce master. Just click this. Okay. So there we have to basically now what we are trying to do. So we are trying to access this EMR cluster from our local computer. Our local computer is basically a Windows machine. Okay, and it's a separate IP address. Like we have a separate IP address. So what is our IP address? Suppose you just say my IP address. You just click it. What's my IP address? If you just click this link, so you're saying my public IP address is 223.235.95.156. So every other computer, like suppose we are here 6 people, we 6 people are having different IP addresses. Okay, now what I want to do, this IP address now want to access this EMR cluster. Okay, the EMR cluster what you have created, that EMR cluster is a cluster, and from our IP address we want to access the master node. You're accessing a EMR cluster means you are accessing the master node. Okay, so we have to basically whitelist that IP address. Otherwise, what will happen? No, you created your cluster. We rest of the 5 people will be able to access it. We will be make use of your AWS, and your bill will go to thousands of dollars. That we don't want, right? So that's why, like by default, it's all security enabled. So now I want to access this EMR cluster. This EMR cluster doesn't know whether Abhishek Avasti has created this EMR cluster, or Siddharth Ray has created the cluster, or Viharika has created that cluster. So it is completely unaware of this. So we have to explicitly say that this EMR cluster is created by Abhishek Avasthi, and please grant him the access to make use of this. Okay, so for that we are just coming here. So you can see it's saying slave, it's saying master. Just use this one, master one, because every time you have to access the master. Now you can see there is an inbound rule. Okay, just remember this one time. It's a one-time learning. Click edit inbound rule. Okay, and click and edit inbound rule. Scroll down to the bottom. Add rule. Click add rule. Okay, in add rule you can see it's a new entry has been created. Click this drop down and mention all IP address, sorry, all traffic. You mention all traffic. Here it is custom. So in the custom section, just click that drop down. Go on. Can you click this drop down, please? So now just click my IP. There you can see the same IP address what we saw there, no, 223, 235, 95, 156 here. You saw that, right? Last time, 156 ends with. So now what happened? The same IP address is added automatically. Okay. So you are saying like you add this extra exclusion whenever this IP address try to access it, give it access. It's permitted. Now click save. Okay. If you don't do this, yeah, please.
We have private key, right? So that nobody can access to the cluster.
Private key is there, but private key can be accessible to anybody. You can circulate with your entire team. Okay, but again, still you have a IP whitelisting is required. And just like user ID, password, two things are required to connect to a system. Similarly, here private key as well as IP address whitelisting also is required. It's not like if you have IP, if you have this access, then you will be able to. Okay, so it's a two directional. Both the options are required to be enabled. Okay, so now basically I can just click open. Okay, if everything is correct, you should be able to see the screen. So you have to click yes. So now you are just connected to the EMR cluster. Okay, so PWD, present working directory, you can see the current working directory is basically home Hadoop. Now what we'll be doing, we will, so you have your Git installed, right? I'm assuming if you're kind enough, you have done everything. I don't have to do this again. Right click, Git bash here. Yeah, hopefully it's done everything, the setup. PWD, then git status. We made a lot of changes. So it's saying .git ignore .workspace XML and all this. Then git add all, that is dot. Then git commit -a -m, and we are saying all code added. Then we are saying git push origin, hit enter. Okay, if all these things are correct, it should push the code to the repository. I think the configuration is not done. Okay, it's done. Cool. So it's basically everything is done. Now what we can do here. So you should see everything in this red color and all this, it should disappear. All are white, that means it's all synced up. Now you can see there is a execution environment setup script is there. Okay, you have to, so you can see set up an EMR cluster, this section. If you come here, so a couple of things like we executed this part. So in Windows, you can't execute this. For that, we have to use this PuTTY, all this exercise what we have done there. But for Unix and Mac system, you simply execute this. Open your terminal, just type ssh-i, your PEM file name, Hadoop @ cluster DNS name, you are connected. Okay, now the black and white screen what you are seeing, this will be opening. This will be open in your normal terminal. Okay, that's the good part about using this. Now just do one thing. Just here you can see these are the set of commands I have to execute. Export LC all local language setup, then yum update. So this yum update is used to update the operating system, just like you are in Windows, everything is fancy. Here there is a pop-up welcome. You can click that to update your OS, but here through command prompt. Sudo yum update -y means yes. So it will update your OS. Then after that in line number 27, you have mentioned the command sudo yum install git core -y. So you are saying just install git on your master node, then pip install py-yml. Okay, in the code you are seeing we are using YML, right? So it's showing red color underline. So there we are installing. We are not installing in our local computer. Rather, there we are installing. Okay, because there only we'll be executing all this. So now you can go there, right click. It will automatically paste it and it will start executing. You can execute line by line, or you can just copy everything and just paste it there. It will just copy one command at a time and execute it. It will take a few seconds to install.
So Siddharth, these things are getting installed in EMR cluster, right?
Exactly, EMR cluster, not EMR cluster, rather the master node of EMR cluster. Okay, because cluster is a network of two nodes, and you will be doing everything on your master node. Okay, in the master node you are copying the code. There only will be executing the code, and those code will be divided into different tasks. The same story what we have discussed in the job execution architecture, same story will happen. It will just break the entire job into different tasks. Different tasks will be executed by the worker nodes. So for us, for the developers, the single point of contact is the master node. Okay, on the master node, we are doing everything there. There we install all those things. Okay. Okay, everything is done. Okay, so all these things are done, and now we can just git clone there. I'm typing git clone, and I'll go to Abhishek's git repository, and hopefully it's all synced up. I'm going to his repository. It's very slow here. Yeah, so what you can do, you can come here. You can see all code added, the recent commit you can see. You can just click this, copy this URL and go there and just paste it. Hit enter. So it will clone this code. It will not ask you for a user ID and password. Okay, then what you are doing, ls list, it will show you, it just downloaded that code, cd data from examples, hit enter. Okay, now ls, now it's showing everything, dot application YML, this all these packages you have mentioned like RTD, everything is appearing. To see it betterly, -lft. It's showing all this directories, all these files inside. You can just type git pull to double confirm like it's all sync up or not. So it's saying already up to date. Okay. Now you have to just set up the Python home directory. Okay. This command, export Python path equal to present working directory. Export Python path equal to present working directory. And you have done that. Okay, now we are all set. Okay, now we are good to execute the code, except one thing is that .secret file. We have to create a .secret file. Let me quickly send you .secret file. Let me see in my system it's there or not.
Siddharth,
Yeah, please.
yeah, how much important to know all these setup?
It's all important. You have to know all this.
Important.
Yeah.
Okay.
You missed to configure the Lambda. You should have done that so that you would have learned certain things. What is the significance of subnet IT security group and all this. These are one-time learning. Okay, don't take it as a load like I have to learn the DevOps thing. That's the hard truth nowadays. Data engineers have to know most of the DevOps thing also. So that's why they're using cloud. No, they want to avoid this extra DevOps cost. So these are minimum things we have to learn. This is a one-time learning. Okay, this DevOps activities. No, it's just one-time learning. We have to learn it. Then life will be easy.
So Siddharth, just one thing. So these all configuration is for Spark. If you want to get means some other thing, some Scala or something, so we have to Google all these things. That is the only
Exactly.
way. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. For Scala, what you have to do? I don't think you have to do anything extra.
No, not Scala. I'm asking in general actually. If,
Scala,
something
like the moment you create a EMR cluster, Scala will be available there. Here also you see we didn't install Python, right? Python is also available there,
okay.
isn't it? Other thing like, yeah, if you want to add any other libraries, then you have to add them there. Okay, pip install and then add. Okay, these are the configurations we have to add there. I'm just copying it. I go to this place. I'm saying vi dot secrets. Secrets or what? Or secret? Sorry, my voice is low today. I'm completely tired today. Dot secrets. Okay. You just hit enter and just paste it. Right click, it will automatically paste. Okay. So now we have to change these credentials. Okay, because these are the my credentials. So just type I, the key I. So you can see here it is showing insert mode. This is the VI editor in Unix systems and all. You have to use the VI editor. So I will be replacing this access key as well as secret key. Okay, so where I'll be copying, I'll go to my workspace directory again, and obviously must have saved that file, new credentials.csv. Right click, open it, and you can see the access key is this one. Copy this. Okay, when you create a IAM role, you remember that when you create a IAM role, it asks you to download the credentials file. So that's the thing. So you just right click, it will paste it. Similarly for the secret access key, this one. Up to this part, you can see a browser URL started. You copy it and you come here and paste it. Okay, so why I'm saying you have to remember it, because every day you have to do it, because every session you start, you have to do this. But I will show you a shortcut like how you want to practice. Suppose I give you assignment and you want to quickly try that, you can still use the Databricks notebook to do all these things. Okay, Databricks notebook you can use for ad hoc practicing and all. But in real-time projects, every day you log into your office system, so you have to do all this activity. Create a EMR cluster and start doing the development. Okay, that's the thing. And username, Ubuntu, and all this. Okay. Now you can see, you can just here you can see it's an insert mode. Type escape. Okay, type the escape key. So this insert will be disappearing. You can see that has been disappeared. Now just type :WQ. You can see in the bottom it's type :WQ, means you want to save it. Okay, this is the command to save this. Okay, then I think a couple of things I missed here. In the application conf file, you have to change all your credentials. Here I have used my bucket name. So you have to change it to yours one. So I think your bucket name is I don't know, the system is slow or something is very slow. Copy it. Okay, you go there. You paste it. Okay, you made a change. Then how to get it? How to get it there in the EMR? So you have to push it, right? You have to call git add, git commit, git push. Okay, now you come here to the so if there is a chance, everybody start installing Ubuntu on your machine and try all this thing in Ubuntu. Things will be much faster. We'll really find it like interesting. So now you can again type just git pull. Okay, it's just refreshed, and now you can just execute the code. How to execute the code? Come to this every other file at the last line. I've executed the command. I mentioned the command to execute this file. Okay, so you can just spark submit, mention this spark submit --- packages. These are the library required to execute this code. And then RTD, inside RTD package, you have this file, scholarship recipient join filter. Okay, you go here and execute. If all things are correct, then it should start running. Anyway, if it will fail, like we'll see like what's the problem happening, then we can fix it and run it. So it's executed, right? So you can see the output is participants belongs to Switzerland, having debts and financial dependence is these two records. Okay, so you can see student ID is 102 and 103. Okay, and you can see country is Switzerland for both of them, and has debt equal to true and has financial dependence equal to true for both the student IDs. Okay, so this is basically how you can execute the code in EMR cluster. Okay. So that is there, and you got it. Anybody having any queries in terms of how to execute the code in EMR? Abhishek? So everybody has to practice this, otherwise you'll not be able to run any code in the next sessions, because you see everything is interrelated, isn't it?
Okay, can you please sum up all things, means say just in maybe 2-3 lines, that this is the first step, second step, maybe just
Yeah. First step is basically you do the development using local computer using PyCharm. Okay, everybody just install PyCharm on their machine. So you do the development using PyCharm. Now in your local computer you are not able to execute Spark because it's very tough. Sometimes it's not possible for Windows systems. That's why we are not spending time doing the installations in local computer. Rather, we are using our local computer only to just develop the code. Okay, you do all this development of the code in your local computer in basically this what you call PyCharm, and then you make this code available in your central repository, that is the Git. Okay, you make any changes, add any file, make any development, just make sure just push it to the Git repository. Now your execution environment is basically a EMR cluster, okay, a proper Spark cluster. So you want an environment where Spark is installed or Yarn cluster is running. You can simply just execute the commands and type the command and execute the code. So for that, we want a ready-made environment. We don't want to install Spark, Yarn cluster, everything in a local computer, which is very cumbersome and time consuming. and many people will not be able to do it because these commands will vary from version to version. One person is using Windows 7, another person is using Windows 10. That commands will vary, and some unknown problems will come, and you will literally spend days to solve it. Instead, like we are not spending time doing the setup in local, rather we just created a EMR cluster, Elastic MapReduce cluster, which is a managed YARN cluster. So you just clicked, you made few clicks, you created that process, you created a Lambda script. Every day you want to execute the program, click that test button. It will create a EMR cluster for you, and then you check out the code from your Git repository and execute there. Okay, so in simple 3 steps, you make your development in local computer, push it to Git repository. Then second thing is basically create a EMR cluster and check out the code. Check in means you move your code, local code to repository, and check out means download the code from the Git repository to that particular computer. That means in your local computer, you develop the code and check in the code to the Git. Means you make your code available to the central repository called Git. Then you created a EMR cluster. EMR cluster is nothing, not a fancy thing, rather it's a whole bunch of computers. One is a master computer and rest are all worker computers. As a developer, you will be always connecting to the master node. Means it's having a DNS name or IP address to which you will be logging in. There you just check out the code or download the code from Git. Okay. Once you download that code, and there you can execute the code. Okay. So always 3 steps. You make any changes in local, push it to Git. Second thing is basically create an EMR cluster and check out the code. And third is basically you execute the code there. Okay. These 3 steps you have to process in multiple iterations. Spend 2 hours every day if you really want to become super confident. Trust me, like if you in the real-time project where you're following this approach only. Okay, here because of this constraint, many people are using Windows operating system. That's why you are not doing the installation in local computer. But there in production in the projects also, even though you are having Mac or Ubuntu, you will not be able to execute the code in the local because what happens, the data is confidential data that is not accessible outside of AWS Vinay. You created a S3 bucket and you upload the data, and you created an access key and secret key. In real-time projects, you will not get access to secret key. Okay, the same code will run if you have proper setups, like your DevOps person has given access the EMR cluster to S3. You don't have to set up the access key secret key. By default, mention S3A : the bucket name / file name. It will be able to read the data. Okay, because you are working for some finance company or for some healthcare client, so they will not give you access to get the data outside of their AWS premise. So there, your code has to be executed inside AWS itself. Okay, inside any of the service of AWS. Okay, that's why anyway you will not be able to execute in a local computer, so you have to always execute it on EMR. Okay, so you just try executing this multiple times, you'll be super confident. Okay, so I've done it twice. Yesterday, last session also I did that. Today also I did it in Abhishek Systems. So don't expect I'll be doing it for everybody. So this is a lot of time consuming, isn't it? So rather you spend some time, try to do it. You will be only confident. Okay, because I have done it more than 200, 300 times, and it's not anything learning for me. So rather you should do it so that you will be having hands-on this. Okay. So that's the process we follow to do the development. So now the next thing is basically, got it? Any other queries?
So I have a question. The security created for each node, right?
Sorry.
No, security groups in AWS. For each node, a separate security group will be created. Let's say
No, not like that. Rather, it's a master worker concept. So master node is having one security group. All worker nodes are having separate security group. Security group is nothing but a policy. Like you are setting up like which are the IP addresses can access these systems or which IP address cannot. That's security group. So here we have 2 security groups. One is master, another is slave.
okay, even if we create n number of nodes, we'll be having only 2 security groups, is it?
Exactly, correct. Okay, so that's there. So I'll be finishing only these 3 files today. so that you just have enough time to digest this. So now basically the second approach is basically first apply the filter and then join. So here what I did, here you can see the same story. I created the Spark session object. I read the application conf and application secrets, then set up the access key and secret key to Hadoop conf. Then I created two RDDs, demographics RDD and finance RDD. Here I just added a third RDD called course RDD. The objective is to basically show how to join more than two RDDs. Now demographics pair RDD is basically demographics RDD.map, splitted it through comma, then dot map. We are saying you same thing you did. You applied the transformations to get the key as the student ID and value as country and rest of the information. Then you apply the filter here itself. You are saying your country equal to Switzerland. Okay. Similarly for finance data, you did the same story again. You splitted it through comma, then converted it to key value pairs. Then you remove then you basically applied the filter. You are saying where has debt equal to true and has financial dependence equal to true. Okay, this part is a Boolean value, whether it is true or false. This is also true or false. When both are true, then true and true will be true. Okay, so then you are basically applying join. So you first applied the filter individually. Okay, then you are applying joins. Okay, that's basically the output. Then you are printing it. Dot for each print. It will be printing each and every record. Then what I did, I tried to add a third data set called course. Okay, so the demographics data is having an additional field called course ID. Okay, this is the course ID. Last one is basically the course ID. So I want to join it with the course data set. This is a course data set. You can having only two records. Course ID 1 mathematics, course 2 is science, like that. Now what we are doing, we are basically trying to join the third data set. So, but you won't be able to directly join with course data set because the joined pair RDD is having the key as student ID, and this course RDD what we have created here, key is the course ID and value is the course name. So for that you have to add a couple of extra transformations. So what you did in the first place, so what you mentioned, join pair RDD equals join pair RDD dot map record. So you just took the record of 1, that is nothing but the value part of the pair RDD. Of 0 is nothing but the demographics value part. Of 6 means the last index, that is the course ID. That means you are trying to change the key part to course ID, and value part remain as it is. Okay, value part remain all these other attributes. Okay, record of 0, record of 1 of 0, record of 1 of 1. Okay, you just mentioned the student ID and all this rest of the information. Now, basically record of 0 is basically student ID. Record of 1 of 0 is basically the demographics. Record of 1 of 1 is basically finance information. Now, again, you join the third data set, that is the course pair RDD. It can be joined because course pair RDD is having key as the course ID. And here in line number 60 also the RDD what has been resulted, that is also having the key part as the course ID. Now join happened. Again, you got a very complex value part. This value part is having 3 elements. Now you are adding another course value part. It's a huge nested tuple. And then you are doing some cleansing. So you are saying in the last part, bringing the student ID as the key part and keeping the demographics information, then finance information, and then the course information as the value part combined as a key. Sorry, combined as a tuple. Okay, let's execute this and see. Only it's everything same, only the file name I'm changing here. Okay, go to your EMR cluster and just test it and execute it. So first output is just printed where student ID equal to country is Switzerland and has debt and has financial dependence equal to true. Then you join the third data set course. You can see key is the student ID, value is a tuple containing demographics information, finance information, and the course information. Okay, that's the second approach, like you saw by applying filter first and then join. Okay, this is the second approach, and the third approach is basically to apply the Cartesian product. Okay, Cartesian product also you did the same thing. You read both these pair RDDs. Okay, you read both the pair RDDs, demographics RDD, finance RDD. Okay, so then you are converting that to pair RDDs, though it's not necessary because Cartesian product is not specific to only pair RDD. You can apply it to any RDD, but we're just following the uniformity. That's why we just did that. So you first apply the Cartesian product here, and then you are applying the filter where both the student IDs are same, because once you apply the Cartesian product against student 101, you will get the finance data that is 101, 102, 103, 104, like that. So that's what you'll be doing. But you want to get only those records where both the student IDs are same. That is the first filter, and second filter is country equal to Switzerland, has debt equal to true, has financial independence equal to true. Okay, that's there. That's basically what we are trying here. Viharika, are you following? Kishore?
Yes, sir.
Vinay? Vinay?
Yeah, Siddharth.
You see, it's not very tricky, just provided you have to just try this by your own. Unless and until you do your hands-on, you will never be confident. So you have to do hands-on. I just request you everybody, just try to execute this all this code by your own. Okay, you have everything recorded available. Follow this and do this. Okay, it's worth doing. Just like yeah, please.
Couple of quick questions. Go to the code, please. First of all, like year 30, 31, 32, this configuration access key, this is mandatory for all programs. We would have
all
to
programs, correct? All programs, because in every program you are reading data from S3, isn't it? So not every program, wherever I would say, like when you are reading data from S3, you have to set up the access key and secret key. Okay, in these 2-3 programs you saw, you are reading data like finance.csv, demographics.csv, course.csv. These are all available in your S3 bucket. That's why you have to set up the access key and secret key.
But S3 bucket, we have not, like I missed the point. The data has not been uploaded. Can you go to that S3 bucket, please?
What you missed there?
S3 bucket. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there, right?
Yeah.
This data we have already uploaded last session, if you remember.
Yeah. Okay.
All these files should be there.
And the second one is you were talking about the checkout, like adding the data, committing, then one step executing.
Check-in means there's 3 commands. This git add, git commit, git push is nothing but you check out the code. Sorry, check in the code to Git. Okay, and there in the putty in the master node, you type git pull. That is nothing but check out the code. You basically pull the code from remote repository to this master node.
Okay. Now got it. Check out that from Git to here at putty.
Yeah. Same English. You are just going to a hotel. You are checking in. When you are coming out, you are saying, "And I check out." Same English, plain English. You only. You check in your code there to the repository, and here you check out the code in some other system. Okay, like that. So, yeah. Viharika, anything? We're not saying anything.
So here one more small point. Like here I do have all the configuration. If I want to try it again from beginning, what should I do?
Only you have to go to the execution environment. You have to follow the setup EMR part. The rest of the things are all done for you, isn't it? this part you have to just follow to execute your code, isn't it? So all these configurations are done with your local computer. You just have to go to your, every time you want to start executing, create a EMR cluster and do all these setups there. Okay, and then execute the code. Means EMR part onwards, you have to do it every time. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Verica, still I can't hear you.
That I have one thing. So currently we are pulling everything from S3 buckets. Suppose that we have data in some another Azure place or some place. So what changes will be there?
Yeah, means you have to follow the same thing. Here we have tried all this. Here you are seeing S3. After some time you will see you will be reading data from RDBMS, NoSQL, MongoDB, Redshift. All these systems have kept examples here. Okay, we'll see that. For Azure part, we are not covering here because it's Spark with AWS. Spark with Azure will be a new course will be added after a few months. For now, everything is on AWS.
So all files. So miss, can there be any scenario that we are pulling files from some different system and rest everything in AWS in like it will be there, right?
All hybrid things are possible. You will see different projects have different architecture.
Okay.
Data, some companies are using hybrid cloud, and some part in AWS, some part in Azure. And they are in a migration stage from AWS to Azure or vice versa. So you'll see all these possible scenarios. That's what you data engineers have to do, right? These are the data engineering part. We have to do all this.
And one more question I have, Siddharth. So currently you have means using Putty you have connected to Spark EMR cluster. So suppose that we have means instead of Spark we have Hadoop. So same kind of thing will be there, right? Using Putty we have to connect to that Hadoop and backend everything.
If to which system you will be connecting?
No, suppose that currently we are using that Spark cluster, right? So instead of Spark, if we want to use Hadoop or something. So same way we will be connecting there means in AWS.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. It's a Hadoop, Spark, Hive, anything. So okay, so we just created a cluster. We just created a cluster. In that cluster, everything is there. Okay, so you are just logging into a cluster, YAN cluster. Okay, this Putty connections and all these things you are doing. No, these are you are doing it to EMR cluster. So here you can see on top of that EMR cluster, you have SPFS, Zeppelin, Spark, Ganglia, everything is there. Okay, so it's the same cluster on top of which everything will be there. Hadoop, Hive, Peak, everything will be there. So it depends upon you what kind of clusters you want to create. Okay, I mean it depends upon you like what type of clusters you want. Means a cluster with whatever softwares you want to install. So when you are creating a cluster, you can go to this advanced option and you can specify. You can specify what are the different softwares you are looking for. What are the different softwares you are looking for in that particular cluster? You can say Hadoop, Hive, Q, Spark, Page, HBase, Presto, Scoop. What are the softwares you want? You can specify it here. Okay. So that is there. Once you install that, then you can access those services there.
Okay, got it.
So that is there. Apart from that, yeah, I was just saying, means how you'll be executing the same on Databricks notebook. So same thing, you can go to Databricks. You can go to Databricks Community Edition. You want to read data from say some S3 bucket, okay? So you should be also able to do it there. Okay, when you want to quickly practice some program, don't have to always create a EMR cluster. But yeah, suppose you are thinking of sitting for a couple of hours, then you can create a EMR cluster and do all this. But for quick thing, you can do it in Databricks. Okay, you can the same thing what you followed there. You set up the access key and secret key there and start reading the data. I don't know why it's been slow. Yeah, I'm experiencing this slowness in the morning also. So that they are, means basically there also you have this SC object, Spark object are available. You can directly make use of them. Okay, you have to try it. Once you log in, I will be able to show you. But that's the whole thing. Like all this code, what we are trying here, that you can also try it using Databricks Notebook. Okay, got it. So that is there. So that's all for today. Okay. So we'll again connect in the next session. So every time you're practicing, just remember to only just terminate the EMR cluster. Okay. You can just terminate the EMR cluster so that you will not be charged. So I'm assuming like you should be getting some good bill because your cluster was running since last 2 days. If you go to billing, say 1300 rupees. Okay, so you have to carefully use this. Now you can just go to the same EMR cluster. You have to keep checking, okay? But anyway, you don't have to pay it, but still, just keep checking. You are not misutilizing this. Okay, so that's all for today. We'll again connect tomorrow. Okay, make sure just practice everything. Okay.
Where to terminate it?
No, simply just click this checkbox and then terminate it. Okay, there also you can terminate. You can see that the terminate button is there. Yeah. Okay, thanks everybody then.
Thanks.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank